What's up, Bio Class? This is Mr. Yago, as you can see, where we can go through Chapter 9 on cell respiration. We're going to start out kind of simple, looking at various chemical pathways, and as we move forward in these videos, we'll get into a little more detail on what's happening here, which is, the inside of a mitochondria, and basically how we slowly release energy out of it efficiently. So let's get started. One of the first things I want to talk about is essentially what happens to the food we eat. Food, as you know, is a necessity, and there are good foods for you, there are bad foods for you. But what we do is we take energy out of food. So food provides living things with the essential building blocks. Proteins, for example, are an essential building block that are going to help us grow and reproduce, not only at a cellular level, but at a macro level. The body can essentially synthesize new molecules from food, and synthesize basically means to make. So what it's saying is, we can make a new cell out of a cheeseburger. We could make, new skin out of a cheeseburger. Hindsight, we can do that. But the bottom line is what I want you to know is that food is chemical energy, and in our world, energy. If we look at the first law of thermodynamics, it cannot be created nor can it be destroyed. It is only transferred. So your body, every time you eat food, is going to kind of go through this process where it transfers food into energy. And that energy can be used for a variety of things, whether to heal, repair, renew, grow. It's a necessity for us. So to start things off, we're going to look at what chemical energy is, and I have a few things I want to talk about. Maybe eliminate some misconceptions, maybe have you learn a few things or two here. But what is a calorie? Now, there's two important things to understand. We have a calorie with a lowercase c, and we have a calorie with an uppercase C. There is a massive difference between those two. But let's start out with what a calorie means. Chemically, so we're talking in chemistry class, if we look at what a calorie is, it is the amount of energy to raise 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. So let's say you have a cup with 1 gram of water in it, okay? And it is currently at 20 degrees Celsius. If you take a Cheeto, which we'll say has 1 calorie, Cheetos do not have 1 calorie, and you burn a Cheeto, light it on fire, underneath that cup of 1 gram of water. Once the Cheeto is gone, you should have raised that cup of water 1 degree Celsius. Now, a lot of you are thinking, well, what the heck does it have to do with calories? Why are we so worried about the calories we'll eat? Well, we use that energy as heat in that case. We burned it. But what we can do in our bodies is we can take energy in from the food we eat and use it to grow and synthesize new things and fix and repair. So it's super, super important. Now, that's a calorie. The calories that you see on a food label, so as you're, eating your 5 pounds of spaghetti or 1 piece of cheesecake or 217 Big Macs, they all have a calorie, all right? So, for instance, we look at a Big Mac. A Big Mac actually contains 563 calories with a capital C. But how many total calories with a lowercase c is that? Well, that's actually 560,000 actual calories. If we look at that, it essentially could raise a gram of water 560,000, degrees Celsius, which is a lot. Okay, so please know the difference. Take a look here just to give you a little bit of an idea of how much energy we can get out of food. So you got 5 pounds of spaghetti, which would be, that's a lot of spaghetti. Probably 2.5 packages cooked, 5 packages of spaghetti uncooked. That'll brew a pot of coffee. 1 piece of cherry cheesecake, if you burned the amount of calories in there, could power a 60-watt light bulb for an hour and a half. That's pretty impressive. And a Big Mac, you could probably drive from here to the border of Illinois on 217 Big Macs. So I want you to just gather the necessities of what a calorie is, and that it's purely energy, and we can use that for whatever we want. Now, they're not going to build cars that run on Big Macs, but you guys get the idea. So the process that you're going to learn about in this chapter is called cellular respiration. So it's happening at a cellular level. But the key thing is I want you to understand is we are not burning energy. We are going to slowly release it from food. Okay? That's like if you got $100 for Christmas, and instead of blowing it all at once on one thing, over the course of a couple months, you bought little things and slowly used that amount of money. Or maybe you put it in a bank and it made interest and you grew that amount of money. So keep that in mind as we're moving through this process. So let's take a little overview of cell respiration. I think Mr. Hoffman is going to dive into much more details, but in order to get energy out of your food, you need to go through this process. And if you take a look at the bottom, it's simple chemistry. We are going to use the major food molecule glucose because, let's be honest, that's all you eat is sugar. And I do want you to write this down here below. So start off writing, glucose. It may help to write both the chemical formula, C6H12O6, as well as the name. But this is a balanced chemical equation, if you remember from your days in Science 9. 1 glucose plus 6 oxygen will yield 6 carbon dioxide, 6 water molecules, and ATP, which is energy. Okay? So, to say that this process, yields energy, it actually requires us intaking, some chemical energy. And it also requires us breathing in some oxygen. And as a byproduct of this process, we do make carbon dioxide and we do make water. Our bodies are made of over 70% water. Every time you breathe in oxygen, you breathe out carbon dioxide. So if you think about this at a larger level, at a macro level, you'll truly understand that this is an ongoing process in our body every single day. So you guys just went through photosynthesis, and this is a great way to kind of compare. Down at the bottom, and you do not need to write that down, I have the formula for photosynthesis. Plants do the exact opposite. But think about it, they're autotrophs. They have to make their own food. They just sit there, whereas we have to go out and seek it. We are heterotrophs. So photosynthesis converts energy from the sun into sugar, where we do the opposite. We take oxygen and sugar and we convert it into carbon dioxide, water, and get energy. So this process, is backwards, but you should be able to understand how this process works, in terms of cell respiration if you understand photosynthesis. We have our reactants, we have our products, we have things we need to intake in order to get energy out. So because plants can't move, they actually absorb energy from the sun using chlorophyll, and they take in CO2 from the air, and they take in water that is in the ground and lands on their leaves, and they make that into sugar. But if you take a look at it, sugar is CHO, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, which is food. And if you look at CO2 in the air, you have carbon and oxygen, and hydrogen in the water, you have all the necessary components. You're just rearranging that formula, okay? But that takes energy, most definitely. To yield this, it's going to take some energy. So, just so you can understand how we work and how plants work. All right, so as you see below, you guys already have this written down. Cell respiration requires oxygen, as well as a food molecule. It doesn't always have to be glucose, but that's kind of the best way to really break things down. If all the energy from glucose were released at once, we would lose most of it to light and heat. Remember what I said before. It is so important for your body to slowly go through multiple processes to yield as much energy as possible. So what this slide is trying to get you to understand is that this just doesn't happen instantly. You don't just combine glucose with oxygen and get a ton of energy out of it. You're going to learn in the next video that we have to go through processes like the Krebs cycle and processes like electron transport and fermentation for our body to really maximize that one molecule of glucose. Okay? So key things to take away here. Energy released slowly. Otherwise, it's just going to be given off as light and heat. Because remember, energy is not destroyed. It's not created. It's transferred. So the cell uses these processes to maximize that ATP. All right, so to kind of wrap things up, this is what you're going to be diving into next. So this is just the schematic of what's to come. It looks complicated. It is complex. But really, if you follow, the processes and look at what our end goal is, which is to make a lot of energy, it's not too bad. But you're going to go through 3 steps. You're going to start out learning about glycolysis, which is here. Then you're going to move into Krebs cycle, which notice that is inside of a mitochondria. Glycolysis happens outside. And then we're going to end with electron transport chain. But again, looking at the schematic, what's the bottom line? We are going through 1, 2, 3 processes. In each of those processes, we are gaining ATP. And you're going to find out that this last one here, we get a lot of ATP out of. But if you were to burn it up right here, in one step, a lot would be gone as light and heat. So that ends this information. I got one more slide to go through, and we'll move on from there. So I may be the only one that does this, but I like to kind of wrap up the video and have you take an opportunity to kind of go through and just answer these questions. I am not going to give you the answers because they are in your notes that you just wrote down, but take a moment, pause the screen, see if you can answer these out of your head. If not, dive into your notes. This is a quick 5-10 minute way to just kind of study and make your life a lot easier. Wink, wink. Probably similar questions that I would be asking from this section on a test. So if you have any further questions, feel free to ask your local biology teacher or myself. That's all I got for today. You guys have a fantastic day. Yago, out.